Hello, this is Dr. Rosemary Stein in Burlington, North Carolina, and I'm here with the parenting tip of the week. Well, it's been a tumultuous week, and we have found out that in North Carolina, we are still in stage 2, or phase 2 of quarantine. But what really made me sad is not the stage 2, is really that the children are going to have a lot of limitations on their going back to school. You see, there are 2 ways for them to go back to school. One will be with them going back to school fully masked and sitting 6 feet away from each other. And so therefore the schools have to be at 50% capacity. And the other one is to have online school for them. And so neither one of these 2 choices, which each one of the superintendents and the districts are allowed to make, is acceptable for our children. So let me go back and explain to you why I think this and what I'm seeing in the children, and why I'd love to be able to speak to school superintendents, the superintendent of public instruction, Mark Johnson, who has not done a good job in advocating for our children, our governor, and whoever else will listen on behalf of our children. Well, for the last 4 months, we've been seeing the kids on a daily basis at the practice. We never closed our doors, and I've been able to see over the last 4 months how our children have done. And when it comes to their mental health and their physical abilities and their weight and their overall health and nutrition, they're doing very poorly. But what is really concerning to me is that a lot of the children now are despondent because they don't see hope for themselves for the future. They are very sad, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're looking at the news or what their parents are talking about, and they are interested in having their lives back. And clearly, I don't blame them. They're children and they should therefore have childhoods. But in essence, their childhoods have been removed from them. And their ability also to fight off infections, because they haven't been exposed to other people that are ill because of the pandemic, has also been removed from them. So that adds another part of childhood that is not good for children not to be exposed to illness and therefore not to have immunity. So the way that I see this is that from what we have seen at the clinic, children do not have the same amount of illness. We call that morbidity in medicine, but they don't have the morbidity that adults have had. And if you look over the numbers, you will see that most younger adults don't have much morbidity either. But among children, it's even less than that. And that's a blessing. Our children are sick with COVID much less. And when they're sick, they have very few symptoms. They have very few hospitalizations. And what I can attest to at the clinic is that there is very little, if any, transmission from the child to an adult. We've even had children who've had the disease. We can't figure out how they were positive, and they had very mild symptoms, but they were with family members the whole time in quarantine. And it's a child, so you're not going to separate this child from everybody else. But that child did not pass on to the disease, and in many occasions, over to an adult. Now, I've seen adults pass the disease over to children, but I've not seen the children pass the disease over to adults or to other children in any cases that I have been made aware of. And believe me, I'm looking. We have 5,000 patients in our practice. And we've had a lot of children and families who have been COVID positive. None of them have been very sick, and none of them that I am aware of until today have been transmitting that virus from themselves to another family member. That says a lot, because 5,000 children that I'm able to see is many schools. So that would tell us that if we were to make such a drastic decision about the schools and about our children's education based on the coronavirus, we are making the wrong decision. We're making a decision based on assumption and not on facts. We're able to study the facts and see that the transmission is very low, that the morbidity is very low, and therefore being very aggressive in the education of our children to the point of stopping their education would be needless. Yes, I did say it, needless. So that's the point that I want to make, and I'd like for you guys to be able to share this information as much as possible. We all know that Facebook does decrease my circulation of my videos, so I expect this to go to 5 or 6 of you right now. But if 5 or 6 of you share it to 5 or 6, and then those share it to 5 or 6, and so on and so forth, we'll get this video around. This is not speculation, this is actually what Dave and I are seeing. And so we are hoping that if more and more of the doctors that are interested in getting the word out and using common sense instead of using emotion and just false information, that more of this word will get around. I'd love to see schools open, hopefully normally, for our children. And I am an advocate for children. I'm an advocate for teachers as well. We have many teachers that bring their children to me. So I want the teachers to be healthy and to be well as also. So I would like for teachers that feel that they're unsafe and do not want to go back to school for their safety, I'd like them to consider sitting out the 2020 to 2021 year, or at least the first semester. Because our children do need their lives back. They need to go back to being able to be children, to being able to be educated. And here's the last point that I want to make, because we're talking about schools, is that our children need good education. If we're going to send them back to school, let's not send them back to school to have online school or some sort of education that is half-witted. Let's talk a serious talk about education and correct curriculum, classical education. Let's actually take this opportunity to be able to switch this around from an education that is poor and it does not serve our children well, to one that is excellent, classical, and will allow our children to make good and wise decisions for themselves. So tips like this can be found in my book, Who Needs a Village? It's a mom thing, because it's the moms and the dads that make the future of America happen.